again from wjlive, powered by the Western Journal. Hello again, about 1 minute early. Joey and I were sitting here talking, and then all of a sudden the countdown hits, and we didn't know we were about to be on. Anyway, welcome on this Wednesday afternoon. I'm Josh Manning, Deputy Managing Editor for Assignment at the Western Journal. Joining me on the show today, Joey Chester, whose new title I don't have yet. You've told me before.
Manager of Publishing Operations.
That's it. Manager of Publishing Operations, the MOPO, if you will.
The MOPO.
The MOPO. Thanks for being with us this afternoon. We're doing things a little bit differently on the show. We're trying some stuff out. This one may feel a little bit different than normal. We'll see. Normally we go about 35 minutes. We'll see how long this one goes. If you've been following the show for a while, you'll know we've tried some different formats. We're just looking to optimize things and figure out what works best, which is why there are only two of us on here today and not the normal three. We've been trying to get Michael kicked off for a long time. Finally happened.
Thanks for us.
Yeah. For longtime viewers who've wondered where Brian has been, well, he's in one of our trunks, dead. All right, so a lot going on today. We were sitting in the pitch meeting talking about different things we could deal with, and I think the thing that stood out to us most is what's happening in Florida, specifically with Disney, the Disney Corporation, producers over there, and what was erroneously called, but brilliantly called, the Don't Say Gay bill. And if you remember the Don't Say Gay bill, it actually was not a Don't Say Gay bill. What it essentially did was it told teachers they couldn't talk about that part of their personal lives or sexual lives with students.
Yeah, it bans you from sexualizing students in K through third grade.
Which some of us would call grooming.
Yes.
Grooming, because kids at that age, they're not normally thinking about sex, and when you start dragging them over to that topic time and again, talking with them about sex, talking with them about genitals, trying to teach 6-year-olds how to masturbate, that's not education. That's grooming.
It's nothing education.
That's what this is. So anyway, that's what the so-called Don't Say Gay bill was about. It was ridiculous because nowhere in the bill did they say you can't say the word gay. What they wanted to stop was grooming. And by the way, if you have noticed the outrage in the on the unbelievably leftist liberal side of things, especially in the LGBT community, that should be telling to you they're outraged that teachers aren't going to be able to groom children. That's what they're mad about. So anyway,
I think they got
getting
caught.
carried away with us. Yeah, they got caught. They got caught. That's it.
Mad.
You're exactly right. They're mad they got caught. They're mad. They're like a bunch of spoiled children. Yeah. I wanted to sexualize kids. Now I can't. Screw you people. So now Disney, we've gotten some insider video from Disney. And this is one of their producers talking about their agenda, the way they deal with sexuality in Disney productions and cartoons. And Russ, let's just take it away with her.
I'd heard, you hear whispers. Like I'd heard things like, oh, they won't let you show this at a Disney show, and I'm like, okay. So I was a little like sus when I started, but then my experience was bafflingly the opposite of what I had heard on my little pocket of Proud Family Disney TVA. The showrunners were super welcoming. Meredith Roberts and our leadership over there has been so welcoming to my not at all secret gay agenda. And so I feel like I felt like it was, maybe it was that way in the past, but I guess something must have happened in the last they're turning it around, they're going hard. And then all that momentum that I felt, that sense of, I don't have to be afraid to let's have these two characters kiss. Let's in the background, I was just wherever I could, just basically adding queerness to if you see anything queer in the show, I'm Proud Family. But I just was no one would stop me and no one was trying to stop me.
No one would stop her, and no one was trying to stop her. That was LaToya, I think I'm saying this right, Ravenel, who's an EP and executive producer over at Disney. Joey.
By the way, there's another video. I don't think we have this one, but the Disney corporate president announces that she is a mother of a transgender child and also a pansexual child, and that she supports having quote, many LGBTQIA characters in our stories and wants a minimum of 50% of characters to be LGBTQIA and racial minorities. Which these quotas always baffle me because we're talking about like such a small
less than 1%
portion
of the population when it comes to trans,
but you're going to make
3% when it comes
like
to homosexuality.
I bet if you took a poll on the street in the U.S. and asked people what they thought the percentage of America is transgender, they'd say something like 20.
We've done that.
Did
Did you see the research? Have we talked about that?
I don't know if you talked
How
about it.
we've talked. I think we even talked about it on the show. It's something Joey and I have never talked about with each other. No,
surprising.
they did this.
Did they?
Like
Yeah.
3 weeks ago,
Yeah.
YouGov did a poll, and essentially what they did is they went out and they asked they asked a bunch of respondents, what percentage of the population in America do you think is Muslim? What percentage is gay? What percentage is trans? What percentage is X, Y, and Z?
Yeah.
The public tended to overestimate by 20 to 30% on most things. Now, that's not that big a deal if the baseline number is in, say, the 60 percentages. But what happened was you'd ask them what percentage they thought was gay, and they would say 20 or 30%. Well, it turns out it's about 3%.
Yeah.
So the American public thinks that there are 10 times as many gay people in America as there actually are. With trans, it's a similar thing, only trans is less than 1%.
Yeah.
Yet they will say, it feels like about 20%. So that they are woefully ill-informed about this. And one reason for that, and you get back to what you're saying, but one reason for that is people like LaToya Ravenel, who are shoving this down everyone's throats. For all of a sudden, people think there are so many gay people out there and so many trans people out there. And the reason they're saying that is because this minority, this elite minority in Hollywood and in the media, they are talking about it nonstop. But why in the world would you want 50% of the characters on your shows to reflect less than 4% of the population?
Right, which leads me to this is why I genuinely think that they're grooming our kids, because if they truly wanted to be reflective of the population, well, like you said, less than 1% of their characters would be transgender.
Yeah.
But I really do think that they're trying to groom kids, because imagine that kids watch this and half the characters are transgender. You know, your 5-year-old kids watching Disney, half the characters are transgender. You know, that does some, I think a lot of like your subconscious is formed, I think, when you're a kid. So
by 7.
Right. So if you're watching these things as a 5-year-old and it's engraved in your subconscious that 50% of people are transgender, then it's totally normalized. And then you go to school and you have teachers teaching you the same thing. Yeah. And then as a kid, you start to wonder, well, am I normal?
Yeah.
And so,
so
it's a huge problem.
Yes, multiple things on that.
Yeah.
So, you're completely right. If you're seeing it, if you're a kid, you're seeing it on the cartoons you're watching, and if you're just seeing it represented in a totally neutral way, but it's 50%, then the conclusion you'll come away with is that about 50% of people are gay or transgender. But cartoons don't reflect real life. Cartoons reflect fantasy life, and there are always heroes and villains. And I promise you, when you start showing kids with special powers, kids who can do things you can't do. I mean, that's what kids are interested in watching. That's what that's why we watch Marvel movies. That's going to go from the kids seeing the person as the designation as normal to them seeing it as aspirational. Oh, I want to be like so-and-so on this Disney movie. Also, so-and-so is transgender. Therefore, I'm going to begin identifying with that. There's not a kid in the world that I know of, at least no boys in the world I know of, who weren't convinced at one point in the time they had superpowers.
Yeah, right.
And so they take from that character and they assimilate it into themselves and they imitate it. And that's part of what you're talking about with grooming. It's to normalize sexualizing kids.
Yeah,
that's completely what this is. You said something after that though. We were talking about cartoons and you were talking about grooming kids.
Well, they go to school then.
Yeah.
Reinforced.
Yeah.
by the teachers. And so then if you've seen it on TV as a kid, and like you said, that's considered like a superpower, you want to be like that, well, then you get these radical leftist teachers that are reinforcing it in school, and schools are a position of authority. And one thing I've always thought about too is like parents, unless they're really engaged with what's going on in their kid's classroom, and they probably have no idea. I mean, what 5-year-old is going to remember, or 7-year-old is going to remember everything that happened in their day or that their teacher did, and then go home and tell the parents? So, I mean, you have no idea what's going on in these schools.
Yeah, well, I found out a month ago, I think, I found out that when I have 2 kids, I found out one of my daughter's teachers is gay. And I said, well, how do you know that? And she said, well, he talks about his husband. And, you know, under Barack Obama, that wouldn't have been possible.
No.
You know, Joe Biden is the one who forced Obama to come out and say he supported gay marriage. But until then, no American president had.
I think we have a video of a teacher complaining that he can't talk about his gay relationship.
Yeah. So okay. So let's throw to that. Let's pull the teacher. That's the MSNBC tweet.
You know, my kids do have questions. They want to know who my partner is in pictures outside of my classroom, and I should be able to speak to that.
So do you worry that you won't even be able to talk about your own personal home life? I mean, I have a child in kindergarten right now. I know exactly that my child has 2 teachers, one of which has a daughter at home and is single. The other is married and has 4 children. I know everything about their lives because my kid tells me.
Absolutely. You are 100% correct. That's what we do as educators. We build relationships with our kids. And in order to build relationships, you talk about your home life. You talk about what you do on the weekends. That's building community. It scares me to death that I am not going to be able to have these conversations with my children.
It scares him to death. Sorry, go.
Well, I was going to say, you can continue, but there is some alarming language in there. He says, my children.
My children.
These teachers
Takes a village.
view your kids as theirs.
Yeah.
Like they are property of the school,
of the state.
They do not view them as your children. And this has been the language the left has used, I mean, for years now, that your kids are their property and they're not the parents. This is why they desperately don't want parents involved in education.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why they don't want parental education and bills of rights going through. That's why they act. The weirdest thing, they act appalled. They literally act appalled when parents want a say in the knowledge that is transmitted to their children. And that's the point of education. And by the way, the point of education is not to build a personal relationship with your students. Now, if you're a really good teacher and some kind of a connection there develops, great, but it should not be a personal connection.
No.
I loved Mr. McBride growing up. He was the best history and government teacher ever. I knew next to nothing about his personal life. I did know he had a wife. I knew he had 2 kids, and I remember him telling a story about when he was growing up. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And I loved the guy, and that stuff was not what made me love him. I loved him because he made history come alive. This is not about building some kind of weird personal relationship with 5-year-olds.
It's very strange.
Who has a personal relationship with a 5-year-old?
Does this
You don't. You're supposed to transmit knowledge. That's what this is about.
Does he not have friends he can talk about his personal life with and what he did over the weekend with his gay lover? I mean, why do you need to talk with kids about it? And I mean, when you really start to break this down and you think about what's being taught in schools, so much more of the current just transgender environment makes sense, from transgenders being on, women being in, men being in women's sports. Sorry, like the Leah Thomas stuff. It totally makes sense because this is being normalized at such a young age. And then you get in even to a broader aspect where you literally have the left and some Republicans who are going to nominate, who are going to confirm a child porn sympathizer to the Supreme Court. I guarantee you that Biden SCOTUS nominee would have no issue with kids being groomed in school because she has given lenient sentences to child porn offenders. Like it's part of this whole wide issue, and I think a lot of it starts in schools.
Are the lenient sentences why you're saying she's a child porn sympathizer?
The lenient sentences.
Yeah.
And like there was the one case where she gave a lenient sentence to an 18-year-old because she said that the minors that he had things in possession of were close to his age when they were like 8 and 11-year-olds. Now, I'm not sure how 8 and 11-year-old are close to an 18-year-old. I mean, that's just you sympathizing with
we all agree we all agree you get into very weird territory when you've got an 18-year-old dating a 17-year-old and the age difference is not that great, but there's this legal line that's kind of arbitrarily drawn. That's weird, but that's not what this is. This is an 18-year-old with pictures of an 11-year-old and did you say an 8-year-old?
8-year-old, yes.
And an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
God help us. So it's normalization. I do think you're right. There's some sort of a weird grooming fetish. It seems like in this. I don't think we talked about this on the show, but we found it was a couple of weeks ago. We found some just crazy camp in the in the Appalachian Mountains, right?
Yes.
Run by. Are you the one who found
I
it?
think Michael found it.
Okay. You might remember more details than I do, but
I think
it was 3 or 4.
Let me see if I can find it.
3 or 4 women who were young, gay or trans, and the point of the camp was to teach you, if I remember this correctly, was to teach children how to embrace sexuality in a healthy way. And we were going all the way, I think we were going all the way down to kindergartners, if I remember correctly. And at least one of them...
Sex liberation.
Yeah.
At
least one of them, if I remember correctly, was defending the idea of teaching like 5 and 6-year-olds how to masturbate.
Yes.
I don't think I'm making that up. And there was a weird Wicca connection with all this, too. They all had sort of, there seemed to all have this weird Wiccan dark arts, dark power kind of vibe going on, too.
Yeah, it is evil. So here...
it is. That explains it. It is evil.
It is evil.
Evil attracts evil.
So this is a sexy summer camp, quote, and it's targeted for minors, including lessons on sex liberation, gender exploration, BDSM, being a sex worker, self-managed abortions, and sexual activity while using illicit and illicit drugs.
What ages? Did you say what ages?
It's minors.
It's minors.
It was minors.
We saw the ages at some point while we were researching this, and it was alarming. Yeah. So this is a bunch of people who are, well, it's not a bunch. Actually, that's what all this is. It's this really small, super vocal group that is determined to sexualize kids. And I mean, I guess one explanation for that could be abuse in their past that they're trying to make normal. Like, okay, if it's okay to have sex with kids, then when I was molested as a kid, okay, it's not as bad as I felt like it was. Maybe that's the psychological implication. I don't know if it is.
What I can't quite wrap my head around, I have some theories on it, is why the left is so quick to jump to defending sexualizing kids. I mean, it doesn't seem like a popular topic. I mean, think about the Virginia election last year, and part of the reason Republicans won, it was over kids and what the left was doing to kids in schools. DeSantis was on Tucker, I think, last night, and he mentioned how the Don't Say Gay bill was totally not controversial until people started making noise about it. Like, even the Democrats in the House, when it passed the House, didn't really say a blip about it. There wasn't mass media coverage. It was only when people started making noise over it. And it's like, the left is so desperate to defeat the right that they have to take these extremely radical positions. But I don't know if that's it.
Not quite
but
it, though.
I feel like it's also, there's this portion of people on the left who are really do want to groom children.
Right. It's not that they want to. We can flesh this out a little bit.
I say I can't really come to a conclusion here.
So it's. I don't think it's that they want to defeat. They do want to defeat the right. I don't think that pushing the insane sex agenda is part of that. I think that they want to defeat the right, and they probably don't feel like they can do that without a sizable group of their base. And they apparently think a sizable group of their base is for sexualizing children.
Yeah.
And that should terrify them. The narrative for the last 7 years has been that Donald Trump's campaign and Donald Trump's supporters are riddled with white supremacists.
Yeah.
Totally untrue, like demonstrably untrue. They should be looking for the child sex predator type in their own base, because it is apparently everywhere, because they are afraid not to move without them.
Yes.
Donald Trump had no problem denouncing. I mean, he didn't even need to do it. You look at the people he hired and look at the relationships he has. There's clearly not an issue with race. There's he pulled in more gay administration members than any president in history, if I remember correctly. So there's no need for him to prove that. Man, the left, they need to be figuring out how to prove that they are not with the group that is interested in. I mean, look, if you say you're wanting to educate children about this kind of stuff, I don't care if you don't go out on the internet and look at pictures of naked kids. As far as I'm concerned, you're a child predator too. You want to interact with young prepubescent children. It's not even good if they're postpubescent and they're kids, but prepubescent children. You want to talk with them about sex, and not on a solely reproductive, men provide half of the chromosome, women provide the other half of the chromosome. No, they're wanting to talk about penetration and that sort of stuff. That is sick. It is an interest in sexualizing children and getting some sort of sexual gratification from it.
Yeah, and I mean,
it is vile.
Yes.
And that is coming from someone who has no shortage of unclean sexual thoughts. I am not some paragon of virtue, but even I recognize how horrible this is. I mean, this is the basest of the base, the lowest of the low. Child sacrifice is worse than this. Not a whole lot more.
It's been totally normalized by every aspect of the left. I mean, not just the political leaders, but people you would consider to have cultural influence. I mean, we've got a clip from the Oscars. I think.
Yeah, we had it up earlier. I know we've got it.
I think we've got it. Russ, do we have that?
Is it?
Yes, that one. Yes, I mean, look.
We're going to have a great night tonight, and for you people in Florida, we're going to have a gay night. Gay.
Well, it was hard to imagine the Oscars being any more gay, and they managed to do it.
If I needed any more reason not to watch, but I mean, but it just shows like that type of thinking is totally normalized. The elite of America celebrate. They want your children. They're coming for our children.
Yeah,
I mean, it's horrifying. It's totally normal. Yeah. No one thinks it's odd that they're just yelling gay, 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 gay. We're gonna have a great gay night.
So
strange.
So let's let's go up on this just a little bit. I think an enormous amount of this is a function of the church having dealt with the issue really poorly in the past up until the present. For forever, the church has been utterly brutal on homosexuality. Now, I would argue that's not so much the church's doing as it is a small e evolutionary desire on the part of human beings to continue existing. You know, the fewer people we have procreating, the less chance the species will survive. And we didn't live in this magical world until the last 50 years or so, maybe last 100 years. So you really had to be concerned. You needed everybody reproducing. So I'm not positive how related the church's brutal position on that has been to the church and not just society and small e evolution in general. However, the church, when it has dealt with it, has really dealt with it as a sort of a defect in the person. Has said that, okay, you're gay. Well, okay, we can cure you of that. I'm not positive that's possible. and honestly, you're really creepy and weird, and we don't want you anywhere near our children. I think the response that should have happened. So, all right. So that was one point of view. As the gay agenda, the gay rights movement has taken off, there are Christians who got concerned about this and decided, okay, well, look, let's just cover it with love. Let's just say that the Bible kind of seems to say it's wrong, but we're going to love you no matter what. You're welcome here. We want you here. We'll just kind of you really don't need to be talking about almost a don't ask, don't tell thing.
Right.
And now it's gotten to the point where lots of folks in the church are just openly embracing homosexuality.
Oh, yeah.
Now, both sides have missed the train here, folks. What we need to be doing is acknowledging that there are people with aberrant sexual desires. There are men out there who are sexually attracted to other men. Being sexually attracted to another man is not a sin. It's not. It is evidence that we're fallen, that we're not what God intended us to be, but it's not sin. Following through on it is sin. There are all sorts of things that I am tempted to do that I should not do. Men aren't naturally interested in monogamous relationships. It's not wrong to be attracted to another woman. It is very wrong to act on that if you're married. So what we should have been doing all this time is saying, look, there are folks out there who struggle with their sexuality, and that is really sad. I've got no shortage of things I struggle with. I thank God that's not something I struggle with because it would be so hard. It would be horrible. It would be so hard. The church needs to love those people and do what it can to help them and to help them lead, in that case, to help them lead a chaste life that comports with Scripture. But that's a really hard thing to do. It's a lot easier to just say, you know what, all the gay folks are going to burn. Or it's a lot easier to just say, well, let's just not talk about the gay thing. We know Paul was kind of against it. The Old Testament was against it. Let's look the other way on it. Those are the easy things to do. The hard thing to do is to say, look, this is, unfortunately, we are all fallen, and we all have weaknesses in different areas, and there are some people who have a weakness in this area, and that is very sad. That will be rectified once Christ comes back, redeems everything. If you know him, if you're in a personal relationship with him, that will get fixed. But in the meantime, it's something you're just going to have to struggle with, and we want to help you with that. But the church has failed in both. They should have gone in that direction. Instead of that, they've either gone this way or they've gone that way with it. And so it has led, if the church had dealt with this right, it would have removed so much fuel from the fire that the gay rights folks, that they were able to point to, because they've been able to point to people like, what's it called, the insane Oklahoma church. They picket soldiers' funerals, and they say God hates fags and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
What is it? I can't remember the name of the church. But people who have done that, they've provided no shortage of free press and very sympathetic press to folks who are trying to normalize something that is not God's best for us. Anyway, so if the church had dealt with this the right way, then we wouldn't actually be here. But the church completely and utterly failed on it.
I'd be curious to get your thoughts. This is a thought I've been having a lot lately about the left and part of the reason things are the way that they are. So many of them, to them, life has no meaning.
Yeah.
Life is meaningless. They're
nihilism. Yeah.
And because of that, they find meaning in things like sexualizing kids.
Sure.
Or like it almost becomes a religion of sorts. There's actually not meaning in it, but they think there's meaning in these things. And they try to find identity in these things. Fundamentally, I think because they think that life is meaningless, because they have become, the left has veered so far away from the church, from God.
Right.
And so, I mean, how do you even begin to bridge those things back together? I don't know, because the left is just, so many of them just feel like they have no interest in hearing. And so I just curious your thoughts on
prayer.
That, on nihilism. Yeah.
Prayer, probably the biggest thing, I think, because I think revival's the only thing that fixes that.
Yeah.
What is presumably happening with these folks is that they are it's the Augustinian. They have a God-shaped hole in their hearts. They are consuming, trying to fill that hole.
Yeah.
They try to fill it with whatever, with gambling, drugs, drink, women, men, men with men, women with women.
Right.
They try all sorts of different things to try to satisfy that. And I think the best hope there is that they eventually are brought to their knees by their inability to fill that void. At which point, we know that God calls all men to Himself. Scripture says that. We know that He provides light to people who are looking for Him. Romans 1, I think 17 says that. So hopefully, if they get to the end of their rope and they just realize, man, I can't consume my way out of this. I've tried every vice that there is, and I still feel empty inside. Maybe at that point, when they are broken on their knees, totally empty, maybe that's the point where they begin to consider, okay, wait a minute, maybe there is a God-shaped hole here that I'm just not capable of filling. And I think we see some of that. Nihilism should naturally lead to that. But part of the problem with free market capitalism and liberal democracy is that there's a lot of vice to explore.
Yeah.
You can spend a lot of time doing it, and because of social safety nets and things like that, you can lead a really indolent life for a long time and not come to your knees, not be brought to your knees. So that's probably working against us in this. But yeah, I think that's the only thing to do. I think nihilism actually fixes itself ultimately because you either, this is really sad, but you either find meaning or you die.
Right. Yeah.
Now, pray to God, you either die or find meaning before you decide to inflict your misery on everyone else, which is what happens with things like Columbine. So I think, postmodernism, I think, does the same thing. Eventually, it just kind of eventually it is hoisted on its own petard. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. We've got to pray that God will send revival and that people will be brought to their knees over this stuff. And I'm not talking about just folks who don't know Christ. There are people who know Christ who need to be brought to their knees on this. And we need to repent as a nation and come together and actually reflect on, it's funny when in the Old Testament, when they finally found the law, it had been lost for a long time. And I'm probably going to get the details of this wrong, folks, but I'll get the message right. They were doing some excavation and some building, and they found the old law, and Ezra brought all the people together, and they celebrated because I think they realized, gosh, we have been aimless for so long. And Ezra opened the scrolls, start reading the law, and everybody stood up. They were so excited about it, so excited to have direction and meaning in life again, that's how they responded to it. And I think if we can get to that point, the problem is we're going to have to get emptier than we are now. And that's going to look very nasty.
Yeah, that is.
Unfortunately.
We're headed that way.
So I think he's either going to send revival or we are going to doom ourselves. And once that doom is carried out, then we will come back to him. But I do think the only solution for that ultimately is prayer.
Yeah.
So there you go. We just solved the problem. Yeah, we weren't sure how long this was going to go. This is going to end up being a 35-minute episode. All right. You have anything else on any of this?
No. I think it was a good message.
Yeah. Prayer. So prayer is the thing, folks. And prayer is the thing, and love is the thing. We've got to love folks. And it's hard. When you've got somebody talking about wanting to sexualize children, loving that person is hard. Now, there should be consequences imposed on them, but they are doing that because they are broken too.
Yeah.
And they need help. And the only thing that can fix them is Christ. The only thing that can fix that hurt, whatever that is that's driving it, is Christ. And we are, I know it's cliched, we are his hands here. And we need to be reaching out to these people and loving them while also gently drawing lines and saying, no, we're not going to let you talk with children about, this is so insane. No, we're not going to let you talk with children about anal sex. No, we're not going to let you teach 5-year-olds how to masturbate. No, we're not going to. We love you. We want to help you. We want to talk with you. We want to provide a safe place for you. We're not letting you do this, though. The solution is not to call them names. The solution is not to hate them. The solution is to love them and to love your children. It's not a loving thing to let children be exposed to this. It is not loving. It is corrosive and corrupting. All right. Okay. That's it for us for today. So different format today. Thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate it. It has been our pleasure to visit with you today. Remember, if you're watching on YouTube or if you're watching on Rumble, to click the subscribe button. After that, click the bell that's going to show up. That'll make sure you get notified every time a show comes, every time WJ Live comes on. Additionally, we know Facebook and big tech absolutely hate us and have tried to strangle our traffic. One of the ways that we stay in business is through people like you, going to westernjournal.com/join and subscribing to the Western Journal. By doing that, you help finance the articles that we write, the research we do, the journalism that we perform, and shows like this. If you feel led, we would love for you to go to westernjournal.com/join and partner with us to take a stand for what's right, to take a stand for the truth, for the gospel, for conservatism, for freedom, for America. That is what we are about. Okay, all right, that's it for us for today. Remember, we are here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. So we're going to see you back here on Friday afternoon. Till then, stay safe.